I've just come off the car park, and if you can hear anything, there's a hall down there and there's a biker funeral going on. There's hundreds and hundreds of bikes there providing a guard of honour for a hearse. They've been there for a while now. But we're going to carry on in respect to the person who's passed. As I came off the car park, there was a branch of a tree that had broken off in the wind, but it was still attached slightly to the main trunk, and I looked and I was surprised it was full of bright green buds. It give me a little kind of rush as if spring was on its way. I mean, the seasons and the weather take up a huge part of our lives, don't they? Underlying emotions or expectations are concerned. We have like a strata of emotions, don't we? Most are generated by what's going on around us. But some just roll along under the surface, unaffected by the vagaries of daily life. Just there. And there all our life, subliminally, in our orbit, but affecting our mood and mental well-being massively. Nature brings the seasons every year, every decade, every century, every millennium. We're like a cog in a wheel, spinning at speed, with the seasons like a bike tyre at the end of spokes, moving gracefully around us and completely out of our control and our remit. We're just going along, doing our stuff, and the seasons just move gently and quietly around us. We don't notice it, but it changes our moods massively. We're all individuals, aren't we? And we all react differently to different things, but I think we all react fairly similarly to the weather conditions. And that changes throughout the year, and it alters our mood, our underlying mood. We have like moods and things that change our mood during the day, but I think we have this kind of underlying mood, like a computer program running in the background. And this is dictated by the seasons. And as the seasons roll in and roll out, our mood changes. There's nothing we can do about it, and we don't notice it, but it's there. And I think we take the seasons for granted, and we look round us and we appreciate them, but we give it very little thought. But it has such a massive impact on our mental health and our mental well-being, and the way we interact with our fellow man, and the way we interact with our pets, and the way we interact with nature. It's so important, and we give it so little thought. Well, that's just part of being a human being in a human being's world. Yes, I've seen buds this morning, but they will be nipped in the bud because we will have cold weather to come. We're still only in January. But even in winter, once the highlights are over, once Christmas and New Year is over, I think most of us are quietly just waiting for spring. And it's a long wait, because it always is. When you're looking forward to something pleasurable, it's a long wait. When you're waiting for something not so pleasurable, it rushes up on you, doesn't it? Winter in the northern hemisphere, especially on a tiny maritime island like ours, drags its heels. It's in no hurry to get out of the way. It shuffles along on damp pavements and muddy footpaths. There's no motivation for winter to lift our mood. It really has very little to offer, apart from the odd sprinkling of snow that might be picturesque for a few hours, but is then washed away by rain and sleet, and a slight rise in the temperature from cold to miserable. No, it really doesn't have anything to offer apart from the quick check on our weather app to see what's coming, and that only to decide what kind of clothes we have to wear. Do we wear clothes against the cold winds? Do we wear clothes against the cold rain? Do we wear clothes against both? And we wonder why in the northwest of Europe we have such an obsession with the weather, and it dictates so much and it takes up so much of our conversation. But we've grown to love it. We've grown to love the weather, and ergo we have grown to love the seasons, good and bad, and some we love more than others. But I think we love them because they invoke emotions, and we all like that. We like something to moan about. We leave the house every morning with no real motivation to do much. And I think a lot of this is down to the weather, and therefore down to the seasons. We probably don't realise it. We go out of the house, but it's the norm. We've been doing it all our lives. We go out of the house, it's a dull, grey day, and that's how we greet the world. That's how we greet the day, in a dull, grey mood. We don't know it, but it is really, that's how it happens. I am looking across a field now, and in the distance, you won't be able to see it through the camera's perspective, but there's like a mist. I can see hills in the distance and a mist lying on the towns in front of it. It's a bright blue sky, there's not a cloud. It's going to be cold today, but it's going to be bright. The sun rising in the east is still behind that hill. It hasn't come up yet. It's about 9:30. There's jets in the sky, but the sun hasn't come up yet, but it will. Once it does, this whole area will be bathed in a beautiful golden light, and we will still be here knocking about with the sheep. Millions of sheep in the field there, all very quiet. Probably because it's very cold, probably because it's winter, and probably because they react to the seasons just like we do. Never thought about that, did you? See? And then comes spring. We have false starts, don't we? We have a fine day and we think, oh, here comes spring, and then in blows an icy wind, in blows a flurry of snow, in blows stinging hailstone and sleet, and then it goes again, and then we have another fine day, another fine morning, and we begin to look for signs. I know I do. You come out in the morning and you know that spring, we're getting nearer spring, and it's like this excitement. You look for every morning I do this, you look for buds on the trees, you desperately look for them, and when they come, it's such an uplifting feeling. You listen to birds in the morning chorus, and that gradually comes in, and you listen to it. You're looking for buds on the hawthorn and on the rhododendrons. The rhododendrons have great big fat buds, and they seem to come overnight. I walk out one day, and then the following day I'll go out and there'll be fat hawthorn, rhododendron buds. And it's such a brilliant feeling. It really brings a smile to my face. And the air feels different, doesn't it? There's a warmth. All of a sudden, when the sun comes out, there's a slight warmth to it, on the cusp of winter to spring. The air smells slightly differently, like the world is waking up. The world is preparing to wake up. You look at the bracken to look for new fronds, green, curled up, tight. The paths seem to dry out a little bit, and you hardly notice it. We hardly notice it because the moving from the seasons is imperceptible. You have a slight change one day, and then it regresses, and then a slight change, slightly more the following day, and then it regresses, and it kind of goes like this as it comes in. And spring is my favourite season because, like I say, I love the world waking up. I love that kind of lemon light and that warmth in the sun. It's not hot, it's an imperceptible warmth, a yellow warmth that matches the colour. It's fabulous. And then it finally arrives and your mood lifts. And like I say, it's imperceptible, but then there it is. And everyone's mood lifts slightly. And it's the seasons rolling along in the background, like a computer program, keeping our computers safe. But we don't know it. Or we do know it, but we take it for granted because it's been going on since Earth was a child. And we take it for granted, and we shouldn't take it for granted because it's a wonderful thing, because it's created by our little green and blue orb, its position in the infinite universe. And that is what brings us our seasons. Spinning, tilting around the sun in a galaxy, the Milky Way drifting. I think it's Andromeda we're going to bump into at some point, but don't worry about it. It won't happen in your lifetime. But it's magic. It really is magic. I mean, when I say that, I mean nature is magic. When you think about it, it's magic. It's remarkable, and we don't give it enough credit. We just take it for granted. The seasons. Spring. The hanging baskets start blossoming, don't they? And people plant the hanging baskets. Never shed a clout till May is out, but people plant up their hanging baskets too early in the UK. And because we're talking about the northern hemisphere here, not the southern hemisphere, but I'm hoping that our friends in the southern hemisphere know exactly what we're talking about. I'm sure you do. And we plant up our hanging baskets too early. And then the frosts come and they die. And we wonder why. I always tell people, don't plant it up. My mother, don't plant up yet, don't plant up yet. But she does and they die. And we go through this every year. Because we know better. Or if we don't know better, then we're hoping that it might be different this year. And I think that's a human trait as well. A beautiful season comes in, but we always hope it will be slightly better. It's never good enough, is it? And it should be, because it's fabulous. The sun now is just coming, it's not coming over the hill here, but it's coming through on lower ground over there. So it's hitting the treetops. So the tops of the trees now are yellow and bright. And that's going to drop down. And you will see, as the sun comes up, that will drop down the trees, down the trunk until it hits the ground. And we will walk into that. We will still be here walking when that happens. Walking through the morning, walking through nature, walking through a day that's beginning. And in the background, the seasons are still moving along. They don't move along day by day, they move along continuously. As I talk now, we're getting closer to spring. Tiny, imperceptibly, but we are. There's a break. I don't know whether you'll catch it. Somewhere up there, there is a break in the trees. I can see it there. And the sun is there, and it's between the trees. It's just coming over the top of the hill, and you can actually see it through a break in the trees. And pretty soon, that will be above the trees, and it will be onto us. And isn't that a grand thing? Then the blossoms come out, and the dawn chorus is deafening. It wakes you early in the morning when there's just one bird tweeting away in the treetops. Then another joins, and another, and another, and the sound grows until it's a complete cacophony, and it's fabulous, and you don't mind being wakened to it because the light streams in through the window in the early hours because spring is here, and it lifts your mood, and taking that step over the threshold in the morning to go to work isn't quite as daunting. Spring rolls along at its designated pace. We water the hanging baskets, we deadhead them, we enjoy the crisp cool air in the morning and the warming up of the day slightly, and it rolls along, and as it rolls along things change. It's more difficult to keep the hanging baskets watered. The days are warming up, the drier spells are longer. We are rolling towards summer, and we didn't know it. Spring just carries on doing its thing in the background, but it changes our life, and it changes our mood, changes the way we see the world, it changes the way we interact with each other, and we don't know it because we just accept it, because it has always been. Since the first day we were born, it's always been the same, and it was the same when our parents were born, and our grandparents, our great-grandparents, going back and back and back through the mists of time. The four seasons, just rolling along, doing their own thing, not bothering about us. They don't change, we make no difference to them. They just roll along, doing their own thing. The sun is almost coming above the treetops as we move inexorably towards the halcyon days of summer, the lazy, hazy, crazy days. Now this video is going to be longer than I expected it to be, so I'm going to split it into two parts. I hope you will join us on the second part as we just do an appreciation of the seasons and how we don't think about them. See you on part two. See you on the flip. Peace and love.